Vice President Pence led the transition. Wolf.
Interesting. All right, Jim Acosta over at the White House. Thanks very much. Let's get some more on all of this with the top Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, Congressman Adam Smith. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Wolf.
So you heard the White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer today say, you know who's responsible for this apparent failure? The Obama administration, because back in 2016, they renewed Michael Flynn's security clearances. Your reaction?
Yeah, well, that's a common refrain. Everything is President Obama's fault. I guess they got used to it during the 8 years, and now they're not used to actually governing. And whatever may have happened back then, there are two big issues. Number one, what Michael Flynn did is apparently in clear violation of the law. When you are a retired officer, you are not allowed to take money from foreign governments. That's very clear and was made clear to him. He did that. And then second, I think all Congressman Cummings and Congressman Chavez are both looking for are those vetting documents to find out, did Michael Flynn lie about it when he was vetted? Now, you know, whether or not President Obama should have cleared him back in 2016, they probably didn't know about this stuff. Now we do know, and the documents that are being asked for, you know, it's pretty simple for the White House to turn over.
The White House makes the point, Sean Spicer. Look, in 2015, he went to Moscow. He was seen at that event with Putin at that RT, Russian television event. He was paid for that. And then in 2016, the Obama administration went ahead and renewed his clearances.
Yeah. Well, it's quite possible the Obama administration was wrong about that. But the Trump administration actually hired him to be the national security advisor based on that same information. So, you know, whatever clearance they may have given Michael Flynn, the Trump administration really upped the ante by making him the national security advisor. And now they won't give us the vetting documents to see what was said or not said.
When a lieutenant general retires from the U.S. Army, that lieutenant general keeps his or her security clearances automatically, right?
I believe so, yes.
Those are the rules. But is that a smart rule, that somebody like that should be able to keep their security clearances? I guess they have to get them renewed every few years. But some people are wondering, why do they automatically get to keep those security clearances?
Well, that's something that we definitely should look at. I think off the top, it's something that you look at, certainly as you know, like you said, it's reviewed and vetted later on, but I certainly think that is a policy that we should re-examine.
The other point that Sean Spicer makes, and you're the ranking Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, is that there was really no need for the Trump administration after January 20th to rerun a background check on Michael Flynn, because he once was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency at the Pentagon. He had those high-level security clearances.
Yeah, like we just pointed out in the back and forth about whether or not retired officers should automatically have this, you have to constantly check. And you vet everybody. I mean, look, we've had a ton of people through many administrations who have been appointed to cabinet positions and high positions who had been in very important positions before that. And then all of a sudden stuff came out that you hadn't found before. This is at a whole nother level. That's why you need to redo everything.
Tell us why the average American who's watching right now should care if Michael Flynn was paid $40,000 or $45,000 for a speech in Moscow, or $500,000 from various Turkish elements, and he didn't register as a foreign agent for Turkey. Only after he was fired by the White House did he retroactively register with the Justice Department as a foreign agent. Tell our viewers why the average person out there should care.
You know, two quick things. First of all, there are a lot of other things going on in the world right now that are more important than whether or not Michael Flynn individually broke the law. I think as a rule of law matter, it's important that we investigate it, as it is important we would investigate all potential crimes of this level. But I will certainly say to the American people, North Korea, Russia, a whole lot of things are more important. But, and this is the second thing, is Michael Flynn's connection to the whole question of the Russian influence over our election and whether or not people in the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians in that effort. That is being actively investigated by the FBI. It's being actively investigated by the Senate Intelligence Committee. That's why they should care, is this is tied back in to what the Russians were doing here in the U.S., and I might also add what the Russians are doing globally in a lot of different elections.
Is there evidence, any evidence you've seen, serious evidence they're doing it in France right now in advance of their presidential election?
I have not seen serious evidence of that. I have heard it alleged. I personally haven't read up on it, but I have seen very legitimate evidence that they were involved in the Brexit vote, that they were involved in the failed referendum in Italy, which led to the fall of that government, and that they've been involved in other elections in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, what we did learn today, the Inspector General of the Department of Defense has now opened up a new investigation into Michael Flynn, how he got those security clearances, and all of that.
So he might be able to tell us more about that. That's the bottom line, why we should care.
His lawyers have suggested he'd like immunity in exchange for that testimony. Would you accept that?
That's not my call. I am not a prosecutor on that level. I don't know what the balancing act would be on whether or not to grant immunity. I certainly would like to hear Michael Flynn's testimony, to hear more about what he knows about all the issues we just discussed.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be fascinating. Democratic Congressman, your colleague Elijah Cummings, he goes one step further, and he says he believes the White House is covering up, his words, covering up for Flynn. Do you believe the White House is covering up for Flynn?
I don't have enough evidence to make that serious of a charge at this point. I believe in being somewhat cautious about making very, very serious charges like that. I do think it would look better for the White House and for all involved if they would simply turn over the vetting documents.
He says that the cover-up is, he makes that accusation because the White House has not handed over all those documents to his committee. That's why he's saying, Congressman, stand by. I want to get your thoughts on this tension